All right, welcome everyone to the Kubeflow Pipelines community meeting. Today's date is February 12th, 2025. This meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. The meeting is recorded and will be uploaded to the Kubeflow YouTube account after the call has ended. All right, so let's start with introductions. Anybody here that's new that would like to introduce themselves before we continue with the agenda?
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Hello, hi. I'm Pranav, and this is my first call here. I would like to, I haven't contributed yet to Kubeflow, but I was looking at Kubeflow. I work with KFP and Vertex AI. So I was hoping I could contribute to the Kubeflow open source project as well. So, yeah, pretty excited, and hopefully I get to contribute as well.
Awesome. It's very nice to meet you. Anyone else? All right. So I'd like to begin by introducing our new project board. I asked the uh, project owners to close down the other projects within Kubeflow pipelines. So now we just have one to keep track of, and it's called 2.x release. So it's keeping track of what's getting done and going to make it into the next release. I'm trying to keep it post updated, but please definitely can use your help. If there's something that you are working on that you would like to see in the release that is not being tracked here and it is in progress, let me know. I'll add it. If there's something here that you would like to pick up, again, let me know and I'll update the statuses to make sure that we understand that it's being made in progress. If you already have a PR ready and it needs to be reviewed, let me know. I'll update the review status and so that we can keep track under the review column on what is just blocked on reviews, right? So we already have some here. So I encourage folks to go take a look and provide their feedback. And yeah, any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, cool. Um, Next topic is also me. So this, I have a PR here that is making some that's introducing parameterization for various Kubernetes platform configs. And it's also deprecating some of the old ones. And so what it essentially allows you to do is parameterize things like secret names, config map names, and tolerations and node selectors. So these have been pretty like frequently asked in the past few years, and I've tried to link some of the previous issues, even though some of these are closed out, they were never resolved. So it's been fairly commonly asked. So this is addressing that. This is the SDK side of changes. I also have the backend PR. I still need to add some tests for that. But before I go any further, I would like to get some alignment on the API changes that are being proposed here. There's nothing breaking, but fields are being deprecated. So, Chen, I've tagged you. Please take a look.
Yep.
So one thing I feel like that maybe it's worth bringing up here in this call is so for tolerations and node selectors and possibly resources in the future, I am proposing that we provide a input parameter that's just like a flat JSON. So I'll show you what that looks like in the proto here. Uh, So this is one example. So instead of parameterizing each field individually, what I've provided is you can provide as an input parameter a flat JSON, and in backend we can just uh, unmarshal this into the Kubernetes toleration spec, which makes it very easy for us in terms of maintenance. It's also like if you want to specify multiple tolerations from the UI, you don't have to do it individually for each of these fields for various different tolerations. So this feels like it has better user experience in my opinion. What that would look like from the UI side is I can quickly show you here. You would see just like a field here we already support JSON editor via an editor, and you can just post your entire toleration field over here. So a user would go put something like this in. right? And then they can have multiple fields per toleration, as opposed to having one per one key value per toleration for every toleration. So hopefully that's clear. And the same is for node selectors. So that's I think that's like maybe the most opinionated addition here. Any questions, thoughts?
Yeah, I think this actually is some new pattern than how we used to support input parameter for other field. We use the string proto field and then we inject a placeholder. For this, I think my just first impression is it's different. There's no right or wrong way, but it's different. And secondly, is I think the input parameter spec kind of like a little bit duplicate with the I think some proto in IR.
Yeah.
Uh,
So just to touch on that really quickly. So I actually followed a pattern that Connor introduced with the PC mount.
okay.
So he actually just copied the the spec from the pipeline spec. What I did was I copied the whole thing instead. So
Okay.
because this one is like within the PVC mount, right? So I just extrapolated the
Okay.
whole thing and put that at the bottom. I couldn't import it because it would lead into circular dependencies for proto imports. So
Yes.
that's an fortunate duplication here that we have to maintain. So this one I
Yeah,
did.
actually, I recall. So I think a couple of weeks ago we have some proposal for like merging this back to the SDK.
Yeah,
Where did that?
I don't know,
I feel
but
like I might miss something, but we never really discussed that. Right?
I think that's a great idea. I think that is something that would probably kind of touches on like it was help us solve problems like these.
Mhm.
But for now, I've just included it just to unblock this effort. But it isn't new in that we already do this for PVC mount.
Okay.
So if we're already doing it for PVC mount here, it just uh, I've deprecated this one and so that it uses the new one, that's external in the outer scope. So but it's pretty consistent with how we do it here, just for the other secrets, config maps, and what have you.
Okay. I'll take a closer look and I'll comment.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And in terms of it'd be good to try to get this for the next SDK, assuming that it isn't very controversial and if we're all aligned. So just let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, currently this is release is separate from the main SDK release, being in the
Right.
KIP-Kubernetes extension.
Do we do releases of them separately?
Yes, we do separately. They are separate packages.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
don't recall if we pin the exact version or we allow a range of the.
I guess my question is like, is that a precedent for us that if we just make changes to the Kubernetes platform, then we'll do a release only for that, or do we typically do releases together?
I'll double check.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, I think we only pin some like SDK ranges. So if we do a minor release, then we don't need to release the main SDK. Yeah.
Okay. It's platform package these separately, or do we also need to do an SDK release at the same time? So Chen, I guess you'll follow up on that.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think also something worth discussing going forward is like how do we like share the SDK release? Right now you can release the backend, and I think
Yeah.
SDK we still only I have the credential in this
Yeah.
code. So I think ideally we should share that.
Yeah, that would be good. I meant to bring that up as well. If we can coordinate there, we can take that to emails and how we can share credentials. I think you just need to add me to the PyPy organization. Um, but I don't know if there's any.
No, it's that credential we use some secret manager, some
Okay,
internal secret manager tool to share. I think maybe we need to use some external one so you can have access.
okay, we can work through that maybe
Yeah.
through email then, offline. Okay, awesome. Uh, how to
There's
share?
some raised hand. I don't know who's the first.
Ricardo?
Yes. Chin, quick
Yeah.
question. What was the motivation to have Kubernetes platform and KIP SDK separated in different packages instead of bundling Kubernetes platform under the SDK?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think initially when we proposed V2, we say this is we want some platform agnostic spec. So V1 is basically is Argo workflow, right? That's type specific to Argo. And in V2, we want some platform agnostic so it can support both Argo and Tecton and Vertex. And so for like the platform agnostic feature, we keep it in IR. For platform specific feature, the idea was to have those extensions. For example, like KIP-Kubernetes. There could be KIP-Vertex, for example, but never had.
Awesome. Matt?
Yeah, I was just curious on the implementation because you were saying you were going to unmarshal the JSON into the Go type. How are we going to take into account that there's different Kubernetes versions that this could be running on, and we're probably using the client Go types that are pinned to a specific Kubernetes version?
It's a good question. I didn't consider that.
Probably not a
it's-
big deal for this because it's a stable field, but maybe something to think about for other fields that we add support for.
Maybe it's worth commenting that on the PRs. At least we can maybe surface it as code comments or something if for future. And or we can come up with some solution here.
Yeah, actually I don't quite follow the question. I thought today we also support JSON inputs. So the way we
No,
support it, we just
So this will be passed. So his questions are on the backend. So when the backend receives this, so when the driver is creating the container spec, they will unmarshal this JSON, and then they'll unmarshal it into a toleration struct, right? Go struct. That will. So Matt's question is about what happens when the version is, if there's a version API mismatch, then that would fail. So.
Yeah, because the
thought we
client
have.
Go.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say because the client Go types that we use and the backend are pinned to a specific Kubernetes version, whereas like the underlying Kubernetes that the Kubeflow pipelines is running on could be different.
Oh, I see.
I think this is a very unlikely scenario for these specific fields, but it is something we should be aware of and figure out how we would address it.
Yeah, it's maybe more just it's more just trying to stay up to date on the client Go version as they add new fields.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that the fields will be removed, for example.
Yeah. I 100% think it's worth a comment. And so if you could leave that, that'd be great. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns about this? Awesome. Let's move on to Matt.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the context was for the Go license checks and like, are they still necessary?
Yeah, I tend to think it's still necessary. I think it's when we release Kubeflow on GCP, we have some process to follow, and one of them is the license. I think, and it depends on the language. For example, I think Python, you don't need to do anything. Suppose the language handles everything, but for Go, and because we are using Apache license, I think there's some prohibited license. So one example is like the MinIO used to be some compatible license, but the later version, they I think changed their license, so we cannot upgrade. And I think that's one purpose is to check we don't use like Apache prohibit license. And secondly, I think it's also a requirement we need to ship the container, ship any binary with some license notice. It lists all the dependencies and their licenses. I think also some open source compliance requirement. I tend to think that's not like specific to Google, but the overall open source, how licensing work.
Okay, so update on licenses. We did remove them, and it was because the Go license tool is severely outdated. It has been updated since Go version 1.19, and now we have packages that require Go 1.21. So if we still need licenses, then we need to come up with an alternative. I don't know how the rest of Kubeflow is doing this, but maybe this is something that we can sync up with on, because I'm assuming if this is something we need in images, then we probably need it in all Kubeflow images, or if as an entire org we've decided that this is not required, then I think we should be aligned there.
So just commenting about the bullet I added to this topic. I think I presented in past meetings how model registry worked with dependency license management. They use the POSA tool to get the it's just some sort of hook that goes into the model registry repository and watches every dependency, and then it gets the licenses related to those dependencies. It was working well for them. Probably this is something that will be required to get Kubeflow graduation under CNCF. And with that, CNCF also provides that as a tool for every CNCF project. Maybe we can follow up with someone from the model registry team who could join the meeting and do a quick demo for that to see how we could also adopt FOSA in Kubeflow pipelines repo.
Okay, we need and any volunteers to follow up on licenses and how we need to move this forward.
Pika can do it.
Who?
Hey, Ricardo.
Oh, Ricardo. Yeah. I don't know if you said me or somebody else. Okay. Cool. So I have assigned you on this. Okay, cool. Thanks, Ricardo. You also have the next point.
Yes. So not sure how many of you were following the KFD community last year, or the general Kubeflow community. We were engaged for the first time in the Google Summer of Code. Last year, we got, I would say it's a huge success because we got 9 projects approved in GSOC, and we had nearly 120 applicants for joining those projects. And this year, we want to keep the success happening in GSOC. And we need some ideas as a project for the KFD community. Last year, we proposed the project to support Postgres as a database for KFD. Following the past meetings, I don't know if that's a good idea or not to keep that project, but I really appreciate if anyone have an idea and you could ping me on private with your idea. We can propose that as a good project for GSOC 2025.
Awesome. Thanks, Ricardo. Any comments, questions? All right. Matt, you have the next point.
Yeah, the next point after that is somewhat related to, but it's more of a public service announcement that I'm trying to add model car support to Kubeflow pipelines. So if you're not familiar, model car is something that Kserve supports today, which is essentially just a container image with the models stored in the /models directory. And so the idea here is in KFP today, you can run DSL importer on an S3 location, and this would just allow you to specify an OCI URI like you see there. And so it's a little unfortunate because we don't have GA support in Kubernetes yet. I don't think about volume mounts for container images. That's coming. So it has to run as a sidecar container like Kserve does today. So there's some flakiness with the CI, but should be ready for review. Any questions about that? Okay.
What?
The next time. Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just gonna kind of add it to review. I don't know what project this is. Okay, I'll take a look after. Yeah, I'll add it to the review state as well. Cool.
Okay, cool. And then the related topic is when I was running into this for the model car support to work, since it's a sidecar container and it uses the Kubernetes feature share process namespace to be able to access the main container with the user code that gets executed needs access to the file system of the model car sidecar container. And so they have to have the same UIDs being run in that case, both containers. And I noticed that while I was debugging this, the Argo workflows that we compile don't specify a run as user. And so by default, it seems like it runs as root. So I was wondering if that's something we wanted to change. I'm working on amending my PR to have an environment variable so you can set a default run as user that Argo workflow will set on the pods, like the launcher pods. But I wanted to know if we should look at changing this behavior to have it be a non-root user by default.
Any comments? So my thing is I don't, so if it's, since Argo does it default by root,
well, it defaults to just not setting it. So
okay, I see.
Yeah. So that's just whatever the Docker file specified as the user is what gets used.
And then if we were to then start setting run as user like 1000, then whatever users were setting their base image, if they came with a Docker file and that was setting a UID, we would be overriding that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think this should definitely be behind like a flag that's opt-in. If you want OCI support, then you have to deploy KFP where like your executor pods use run as this user ID. Maybe they can configure this UID if they wanted something else. I don't know, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we change this like in the next release, but if it's something long term we want to get to change it to not use potentially root user as default and to kind of forbid that we would need like a long announcement period of several releases. So
Yeah,
I'm bringing it up now if that's a long term thing we want to change to kind of force not using root user, and the user has to explicitly enable that when they're deploying the KFP API server.
I think if we were to force users to run their runtime images, image containers as a specific UID, then probably have to supplement that with, I guess we can just document how to like prep your base images, and this is one of the things that you should be aware of.
Or we could just set run as non-root to true, so that way
Yeah,
you can use any UID, but as long as it's not root,
yeah,
I'd be okay with that.
cool. Any other comments about this? Is there anywhere written down where folks can follow this?
Not that specific topic, no. What's the best path here? Should I like create a GitHub issue with the suggestion that we disallow the root user by default?
Yeah, or a discussion somewhere where at least like we can point folks to if they have opinions about this. Some people might not have an opinion right away, or those not in the call. I would say a GitHub issue is fine.
Okay, GitHub issue, and maybe, yeah, like Anish says, announce it on the community Slack channel.
Sure.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I have the next point. Chen, just a quick poke on this comment. So this is about the changing of the coded driver launcher images. So I changed this to latest, and my whole point was to keep this latest even in releases, and to set this image on manifests.
Yeah, so I think we are on the same page. It's just, sorry I missed your comments, but I think it's just to like, the comments is just for us, for the code maintainer. When they see a latest, they know this is not really
okay.
used in production, but someone else is replacing this.
Okay, good. All right. I misunderstood. Okay, I'll add that, and then we can move forward with that, and then I'll provide the updated release notes. It'll make things a little bit easier. Helber, you have the next comment.
Yeah, I'm helping the Kserve team to update their component under the components folder. And they reached a point where they need to create an image to use in the components. And that question came to my mind. Would KFP willing to store built images, or where those images under components should be stored?
Sorry, what is this image for? So to like, you need an image to run the component. Okay. I don't think we should be maintaining base images. What we might be able to do is stub this out and provide a Docker file where users can build the image and then upload it to whatever the repository, and then provide the documentation that you can replace this with your built image if you want to utilize this component.
Yeah, the problem is that we can't change that YAML.
This YAML?
Yeah, this YAML a user would load by URL or something like that. I think load by URL is the easiest way. So there's no way to replace this.
Yeah, the idea of maintaining base images worries me in terms of like maintainer burden.
Daniel?
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts here. So one is, we can use just a regular Python base image, and they can, install the Kserve SDK, Kserve library, Python library on it, which, for production, that's, maybe you want to build your own base image to do that, but that allows people to get started quickly without having to like build their own image. So that's kind of an option. The other one that comes to mind is that I know Kserve also has images that they maintain that have the Kserve SDK on them. And so we could probably even use one of those as a base image as well. And then that way we wouldn't have to worry about building our own image in KFP.
Yeah, the problem is not the Kserve SDK, but that file in the line 31, kserve deployer.py. We would have to include that file in the image. That's why we're not using the Kserve based image.
I think we need to probably resolve like what exactly is the purpose of this components directory. Is this something that we want users to be able to pull in and utilize right away, or is this something that need to copy over into their environment and import it that way? I would propose it's the latter. And when they do that, they are also provided, they're removing the stub of the image out and providing their own images. I don't know what the intent was initially with this components folder though.
Yeah, I think all the components are supposed to be ready to use components. I think also in production use case, I think it's highly recommended to build everything into the image. It's not just a base image, it's the final image. I think even today, all those images, KFP doesn't necessarily host the images. I think individual components, they decide where they want their components to, where their images to be stored.
Okay, I see. So this was the intent here was organizations to provide their own components and host their images
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
And okay. I feel like then I kind of don't understand why this is in the pipelines repository and not in like a generic Kubeflow/KFP components repository.
Yeah, we had that discussion. I think we decided for discoverability, it's better everything is in the same.
Well, and
Also, I think history, the KP, when KP started, is not like part of the Kubeflow. Before the launch, we decided to merge the two.
Are there strong feelings about moving this to an external repository, and then we can this can be something the community maintains? And not necessarily KFP developers.
are you saying, Humer, like a KFP components repository?
Yeah, it's because this to me doesn't seem like this is under the burden of KFP developers. It's users of KFP that are producing these, right? Now, if users have a need that, hey, we want to be able to implement a component that does this, certainly make that issue to the KFP repository. I don't see why this needs to be in the KFP repository.
So,
So
there, I think there are two types of KP users. One is like they purely use any component built by others. The other is like developers. They provide some easy to use component to like increase consumption of their services. For example, the Google Cloud one. Like if we, yeah, I think if we think everything related to KIP, including the backend SDK documentation and components, all in the samples, or in the same repo, then the current makes sense. But
okay.
I'm open to move this out. We also actually had a similar discussion on whether we should move Google Cloud out of this, but currently it's stay as is.
Okay, I think I might have derailed this a little bit. So the original intent is that their component owners are providing the image. So the answer to your question, Helber, would be that it wouldn't be KFP that maintains this image. It would be whoever is responsible for this component. So we have to identify owners for this component, and if that's the serving team, then sure, I think the onus might fall on them. We have some hands raised. Ricardo.
Right. I'd give a third option, in addition to what Daniel suggested. I understand that this is components that it's maintained by third-party contributors, but after all, this is the process that creates those YAML components. It's made by us. So what not proposing a change that it's possible to create a component where you can inject your own image in it if there's a requirement for an image. I mean, if there's a way to parameterize things inside a component YAML.
No, so I think first the YAML is also produced by the third-party contributors. And second, like the image is like, I think highly tied to the input parameters.
You
Yeah,
might
maybe I
actually.
misunderstood because I saw in documentation that you can create the Python code for it, and then you run a command in the Python SDK that generates the component YAML. So it's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's one way to build a component plus the image. You're talking
Gotcha.
about the CLI KIP components build, right? I think overall, like if you think like a component, you can think like the component YAML as a, for example, in the environment of C++, the component YAML is the header file. You can import a header file, and then the image is actually the binary, is like the object file. You can binary or the object you can link to your binary. You need both the header and the object file for a C++ library, right? In this case, the header file is a YAML. The container image is the object. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So they should really be produced at the same time and distributed at the same time as well.
Okay. So Halbert, does that give you guys direction on what is like the KFP
Yeah,
perspective
we
here?
should. The KSR team should host the image, right?
Yeah, because this would the component itself, we need to identify owners, right? So, and that's not necessarily the KFP developers. That
Uh,
components repo is built up of various different owners, and we should also have an owners file for that repo for those specific owners.
Okay, another thing comes to my mind. Wouldn't be better than the code, this component's code be stored elsewhere, and we just have a link in KFP pipelines?
So I think that kind of is bringing us back to the previous discussion. I don't think we have consensus on that right now. I think
Yeah,
I
that's
think yeah, I don't know where to take that discussion. We can revisit it next time. But I think
I'm worried about having code under pipelines, like some code under pipelines and some code elsewhere. But yeah, we can do that for now.
by code also you mean the Docker file or whatever
Yeah, the
for
Docker file,
the assets for the image. Okay.
the Docker file and that Python file
Yeah.
as well.
Okay. Understood. Okay, I had put in a last point. There is SDK flakiness with the execution tests that are happening right now. They're showing up in various different pull requests. I don't know what commit introduced it. I didn't see when the errors the flakiness started introducing. I didn't see a recent SDK change, so not sure what's going on. If anybody has the bandwidth to look into it, please do. Otherwise, just be aware that this is happening. And if the PR is, if you have a PR that's blocked on these, let me know. Ping me. I'll rerun your tests. And I think somebody might already be looking into this, but yeah, just be aware.
Do we have a like command to rerun the test by the author?
Helber, do we have that?
Sorry,
I think we
the
do.
question?
Do we have can the author rerun the test? But I think it'll rerun all the tests, right?
I don't think you
We
can.
used
have
to
to
have
force
like
push.
I think
yeah, that was with
rerun
Prow.
required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we have it for GitHub Actions, do we? Helber, can we rerun the failed tests? Can the author?
I can't. I don't have permission.
Okay, yeah.
No.
So maybe that should be a task that we should do. That's a loss in capability from what we had before.
I think we have an issue open for that.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Until then, I guess just DM me or ping me in Slack and I'll rerun it. Anything else?
Yeah, other than the like feature idea for the summer of code projects, maybe those like the improve the infra can be also something we can consider for summer of code.
Yeah. I like that idea.
I mean,
All right.
speaking honestly, I feel like that might be a very boring summer of code project.
Not if somebody's interested in CI.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right. All right. Well, I think that's it. We're 2 minutes over. Thank you everyone for your patience. This call will be is recorded and I'll upload it into the YouTube playlist for Kubeflow. See you all next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.